Hello, and thank you for listening to Codenamed Epic Podcast. This is Dismal Elephant, aka Robert McGill, here with,
Kirby Kid.
and we are going to be talking to Dale Wilson, the publisher, head writer, and owner of DWAP Productions. Welcome, Dale.
Hello, thank you.
Great to have you here tonight. I know it's a little bit of a briskly cold night tonight, so thanking you for coming on in.
It's not so bad. It is LA cold, so it's not really that cold.
Yeah, that's true. We could be in Wisconsin.
Exactly.
Where it's real cold.
Exactly. Now you have a very good, I would venture to say possibly amazing at times, especially with some of these stories, independent publisher company called DWAP Productions. And
Thanks.
I've been, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just thanking you. I appreciate accolades at any time.
And I've been reading your books, Caffeine Dreams.
Okay.
I really like some of the stories. Some of the stories just grab a hold of me, and I'm just searching for a second part, a continuation of it, something of some sort to satisfy my thirst of finding out what happens. Are you continuing with any of these small stories inside of the Caffeine Dreams?
Well, let me first ask specifically which stories are you most interested in?
Okay. Let's see. The first one, off the top of my head, was Once Upon a Time in the Dark.
Okay.
Where it looks like almost a teacher having to pull his student's arm off, try to get him to go to a burlesque show, which seems very intriguing.
Yeah. No. So yeah. Okay. Good. I'm glad you're interested in that one because yes, I have probably I have a world that I've probably been developing for about 20 years now. And Once Upon a Time in the Dark is just kind of the banner title for it. And there's a novel that I would say probably 3/4 completed on the first draft of, and I'm working with the co-creator of that world, Brian Glosmeyer, who's been a very good friend of mine for many years. And he and I have been working on that world, like I said, for about 20 years. And so yes, that one we have many tales to tell from that universe. So absolutely, when it comes to that title.
That's very cool, because it seemed to end kind of right in the middle of the story to the point where I kept on flipping through the other books to see if maybe there was a part 2, which it doesn't seem like there's a part 2 of anything in any of these books, which is great. I mean, one of the things I told you before that I admire about these books is that if there's one story that's just not quite for you, it's not your taste or something, there's there's a couple of other very different stories in the book as well that very well can be.
Good. I'm glad I'm glad you like that, because that's actually something that I've that's part of the aspiration behind making Caffeine Dreams is providing a little bit of something for everybody, and also just kind of providing kind of a wide window for myself to tell the different stories that are in my head.
You seem to have an awful lot of them, and an awfully lot of good ones too, on top of that.
Thank you.
Is there any other stories that you're looking to publish, especially if a sooner one from the Caffeine Dreams in particular, maybe Big Ships?
It's so I would love to tell more stories in the Big Ships world, because I feel like the cliffhanger that we ended on, is very much my intention to leave it on that cliffhanger so that it was, purposefully kind of left to your imagination. I'm a big fan of, kind of the obvious examples is like Hitchcock, where, he doesn't necessarily show the violence that happens. And I feel the same way about Big Ships. I don't want to show the wonder of what the characters are experiencing. I want you to I want it to be left to your own imagination. But yes, I would love to tell more stories in the big ships world. I'm very close friends with the artist that I worked on that project with, and I would love to work with him again. His name is Todd Harris, who is also, check him out at brocasso.com. He's one of the most amazing artists that I've ever known, and he's a phenomenal guy to tell stories with. So I would love to tell more stories in the big ships world. He's just really stupid busy. And the reason that he's really busy is because he's a phenomenal artist. And also, I mean, he works in the film industry. He's a professional storyboarder, so they keep him very busy, flying him around the world where he does crazy art stuff.
Yeah, that art, it's simple, but yet it's so elegant, and you just like to look at it and just sit there and look at the pictures. Even, I mean, it looks like it's done in pencil. It looks like something that someone could have done fairly quickly, especially for a comic, but there's just some type of aspect, I can't put my finger on it, that just makes you keep on looking at it that you don't see in very many comics.
Thank you. Yeah, and I wish I could say that. I mean, well, so I will say the art is kind of intentionally kind of simple and unencumbered. And it's funny because a lot of the things that you're mentioning as being positives, and I think are positives about the stories, a lot of people mention as being negatives about the stories. We've gotten a lot of kind of bad comments or negative comments about the art being too simple, but I mean it was the intent. I mean when he came to me with these laid out pages and they were so kind of simple and straightforward. At first I thought, well, how much more is he going to do? And then I thought, no, he's there. It's almost done. So, we didn't want to push it too far and do too much. So yeah, it's amazing. I'm particularly proud of that story, but at the same time though, we get, very little positive press from it. So thank you for understanding it.
Yeah. Well, that's just back to the aspect of one of the great things about the book is that there's so many different types of not just stories but art styles as well throughout each book, that if you don't find one visually entertaining, you'll find another one visually entertaining, most likely. So how did you come up with the idea of creating your own production company?
So at some point about, 8 years ago, I went down to San Diego Comic-Con on a whim with my wife, and I hadn't read comic books for 2 years. Had kind of given up on the comic book world because I was kind of bored by it and wasn't finding anything that I liked. And so we go down to San Diego Comic-Con and we walk in. Now, mind you, this is at a time when you could actually go to San Diego Comic-Con on a whim, and tickets weren't all sold out.
It's impossible now.
Yeah, it's impossible now. So we went down to San Diego Comic-Con. I walked in and I saw this massive, amazing, incredible show for the last 2 hours of it, and I just ran around like a chicken with my head cut off, and just kind of fell in love with the comic book medium. And I decided that I wanted to do comic books. It just had to be done. And I had kind of talked about wanting to do comic books for, at that point, probably 13, 14 years, but it never actually done it. So I just decided I was going to do it. And I knew out of the gate that I was not going to be someone who was going to write screenplays or even scripts, comic book scripts that I was going to be able to easily hand off to somebody and get them to publish it. I write quirky stories. I write stories I write what interests me, and I'm really bad at hero worship, so I'm really bad at kind of writing stories for other people. So I write the stories I like, and I knew that wasn't going to be easily digested by publishers, so I decided I was going to do it on my own. And I had some relatively expendable cash at the time, and so I figured, why not?
Well, you have a very lucky wife. You're very lucky to have such a wife to let you just sink money into a comic production company just with a whim.
Yeah, she's pretty awesome. But I will say that DWAP Productions is not strictly a comic book publishing company. DWAP Productions serves as the creative outlet for my wife and I both. So she does experimental video. So she understands the idea that you kind of have to just spend the money on what you love, and so yeah. Thank you. I do feel lucky to have such a crazy cool wife.
So
yeah.
Was it hard to start your own company? Because a lot of people talk about doing that, but that's as far as it goes.
You know what? Here's the thing. It's not hard.
Really?
It's a decision you just got to make, and you just got to do it. And it's not hard to do. I mean, what? So I mean, I'm gonna get real philosophical for a second. What does it mean to create a publishing company? Like, what defines a publishing company? I mean, you could go real conservatively and say it takes some financial backing, it takes a business plan, it takes all of this kind of what I would consider frivolous bullshit, or it takes a guy who's willing to sit down with some artists to take and tell a story and make books and make stories. I went for option 2, and so yeah. I mean, it really just takes, I guess, in some ways, the balls to put some money on the line and put some time on the line. I'd rather be doing that than. At the time, I was a manager of a customer service center, so I'd rather be doing comic books than managing a customer service center. So,
yeah, it sounds a little bit more fun.
Yeah, I don't blame you right there, at all.
Yeah.
So, how do you have a bunch of artists and different people that come up to you and try to shoot you ideas, and then you kind of have to go through it to figure out which ones to do, or how do you go through that?
Kind of. That's kind of the case, but generally no. Usually I meet people at conventions, or I meet people through friends. Much like I met you guys. You guys walked up to the table and we started jawing, and it turned into an interview and some emails and whatnot. But that's pretty much the process that it usually happens in. Is like, I meet somebody at a convention. I like their art style. I feel like I can communicate with them. I feel like I can be creative with them, and I feel like they've got an art style where I can write a story that will fit that style. I tend to like writing stories that I feel are appropriate for particular styles, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes. So, like, what if someone has a more dark drawing style? You make a darker story.
Yeah, I mean that's some of it, but also so a good example is a great example is I met this guy Evan Spears, and I'm gonna make sure that he listens to this this podcast for no other reason than he hears the story, because he actually doesn't know the story. But so I met a guy, Evan Spears, a couple of years ago, or I guess about a year and a half ago. Through a couple other mutual friends. I worked on stories with those 2 other mutual friends, and I liked Evan's style, but I never quite envisioned a story that would fit his style. It never quite came to me. I liked what he was doing. I liked some of his stuff that he had done already. I knew that he was very into storytelling, and so I always felt oddly anxious to conceptualize a story to work with him on, and so it never happened. And then actually at Long Beach Comic-Con, where I met you guys, I was on a panel with him and our other mutual friend Nathaniel Osolo, who I also did a story with, and during the panel, Evan mentioned Ross Campbell, who is a freaking amazing artist and an incredible storyteller. And Evan mentioned him and referenced him in terms of, very positively, said that he liked his work and blah, 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 and talked about some of the stuff he was doing. And for whatever reason, 2 weeks later, an idea for a story just kind of manifested in my brain, and I thought that Evan's style would work for it. And so that's a perfectly good example of how I meet artists and kind of decide or don't decide to work with them.
That's very cool because usually with sometimes with comics, especially within Marvel, DC, and different places like that, they might have an artist under contract. They don't have anything to fit their exact style, but they'll just throw them on something just to have them be working because they're going to pay them anyways.
Right. I
love the aspect that you look that they must match up with the type of story. I can't.
So here's my one of my problems is I come from, like we were discussing earlier before the podcast, I come from a literature and art background. My wife is an artist, and I'm kind of deeply influenced by much of what she and I learned together. And I have a literature background, so I see things in this kind of art with a capital A mentality. And so when that's actually part of the reason that I stopped reading comics many years ago was because I got tired of just the pop aspect of comics and just got tired of just people just making comics for the sake of making comics. And so when I got back to it, I wanted to just tell stories again, and I wanted everything to be as appropriate as possible. It's a minimalist mentality that the art must kind of be as integral to the story as the storytelling and whatnot. So it kind of, don't get me wrong, I totally get the pop aspect of things. I get it a lot better now than I used to. And I get that, making comics for the sake of making comics is kind of cool also. But I also just have a fondness for, art with a capital A and a fondness for making those stories.
I hear you. There's some things that I'll follow just because it's a character that I've always liked, and it might not be a great story or even a good story, but I'll still read it because it's that character.
Right.
While there's some stuff that I have to have a good story for if I'm even going to be able to pay attention to it at all.
Yeah, I'm horrible about I don't read characters. I totally get that that's like not a fanboy thing to say. Like, I'm not a fanboy. I don't understand fanboys, but I love them to death because they read my books. But like I don't get that. I can't like read Spider-Man for the sake of reading Spider-Man. I have a very close friend of mine that I eat lunch with 4 days a week, and he reads he reads Spider-Man every time he can get a chance to, and I just don't understand that at all. I don't live in that world. For me, I'm much more interested in reading something that I want to get something from the artist. I don't want to get something from the character. Whether the artist be the writer or the actual artist himself or herself. I want to get something from the process, from the kind of love that they've put into the storytelling. I don't give a shit what the character is. It just doesn't matter to me.
Right, yeah.
So
some of us, not naming names, but this guy called Kirby Kid, whoever that is, will follow the Hulk anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad, if he's being killed or if he's just being written terribly. Follow him anywhere. It's like drugs. It's like drugs. I'll compare it to that. But is there anything in the comic book world today that you do follow?
So here's I'm actually writing an article right now, a blog article about how I don't worship characters. I worship writers and I worship creators. So I'll read pretty much anything by people like Warren Ellis or Brian Wood or Alan Moore, Grant Morrison, and these are, kind of big name luminaries. I'll read anything by Ross Campbell. That man is by no means as well respected as he should be, but he's a phenomenal storyteller. So I'll read anything by him. I follow creators. I don't really follow characters. I used to be this huge, like when I was, actually this is part of the article I'm writing, but when I was a kid I loved, Superman and Batman and Captain America and Justice League, right? It was like all that. That was the shit, right? And it's kind of neat because, now that I'm older, I've actually had a chance to meet people like Mark Wolfman, who were the, not necessarily the creator of Justice League, but he was a major writer on the book and he created a lot of the world and stuff like that. But I don't follow Justice League. And then I kind of evolved into, I was an X-Men kid. I was like, I was an outcast, so I wanted to read stories about outcasts. And I want to read things that are well done. That's what I follow. I follow well done, well crafted books. That's what I'm interested in.
Is it hard to find nowadays?
Not as hard to find as it used to be. And part of that is me. I didn't explore enough as much as I probably should have back in the day. But no, there is a massive world of well done storytelling out there. I have 3 stacks of trade paperbacks at home that I haven't read. I've purchased, but I haven't read. And those are all, I'm sure those are all I'm going to learn something from all those books, and I'm excited to read them eventually.
Yeah, I definitely hear you there. My stack of unread things is growing by the instant.
Yeah.
So, is there a specific genre that you tend to enjoy more than other?
Yeah, I mean, I as a kid, I was always a horror fan, so I like to read horror. I like science fiction. I like fantasy. I like seeing the world differently, and I like the idea of a strange world as a metaphor. So I read a lot of kind of twisted stuff, and that's not to say that I would not read a straightforward drama or kind of something set in a more realistic world. But again, I'm going to come back to the answer of if it's well written or well created, well crafted, I'll read it.
Yeah, I definitely see you writing some more, I want to say almost post-apocalyptic worlds, such as in Butterfly Industrial 2.0. Yeah.
I would love to tell more Butterfly Industrial story. I would actually love to turn that into a video game.
Yeah.
I would. Yeah, that would be. Can I cuss? I've been cussing already.
Go ahead.
It would be badass if I could turn Butterfly Industrial into a video game. So yeah, I would love to tell post-apocalyptic stories. I like the idea of. Well, here's the thing. I like the idea of a post-apocalyptic world that's not just filled with zombies. It's filled with other things and a larger world.
They could be filled with other things.
Exactly.
I thought it was zombies and people with weird hairstyles.
It seems like every production company has at least one zombie and one vampire comic.
And I fell into that too. I fell into that. I have a vampire book on becoming a monster, and I have a zombie book. Well, it's not. And here's the thing about the zombie book that I have. And actually, you don't have it. Because a lot of my stuff is strictly online. I would say actually probably 50% of the stuff I've written is strictly online. It was a book called Undead End, and you can find it at magnificentcreatures.com. I actually did not edit that book. A very close friend of mine, Chris Sagovac, who's an animation professor at Webster University in St. Louis, Missouri, where I got my degree. He edited this book, and it's a phenomenal little collection of single panel stories where it's just a single panel and a generally like a spit of verbiage about some kind of zombie silliness.
Yeah, different takes on zombie things I enjoy, but it's the traditional. Oh, the world has fallen. It's zombies everywhere. They're coming after you.
Right.
You just gotta run and shoot and hack them.
Right.
Now, speaking of online, though, that seems to be the trend for comic books. Everything's moving online. Have you faced any problems with being online? Because I know that means it's uber easy to just copy and paste.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have the cost overhead that you do with printing a book. It's infinitely cheaper to do it online, but it's just like anything you do online. I mean, so here's my dirty little secret. What pays my bills is that I do online marketing. So I work for a company called the Search Agency, and my job is essentially to monetize the internet for companies. And so I totally, I kind of know all the like bad things and good things about the internet and whatnot. And, anything you put on the web, the secret is just trying to get traffic to it and drive traffic and, get good traffic, bad traffic, etc. So it's the same pitfalls as anything else online. But it's also one of those things too where people care about it less for some reason because it's on the internet. When it's a book that they can hold in their hand, for some reason that's still more important to our culture. But I feel like with the Kindle and other various tablets and whatnot, we will eventually evolve.
All right. Well, I guess the good part about the book is that you could have people like yourself sign it. It's like, can you sign the screen of my Kindle? I can't ever use it again. But
yeah, I mean, I get that, and I understand that that's from and I not in any way mean this negatively, but it's a fanboy perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's for me. I don't. I go to conventions as often as possible, and I go up to tables for creators that I'm a fan of, and I buy their book, and they ask me, "Do you want me to sign it?" I said, "Well, I don't care. It's like I don't care if they sign it. I mean, if they want to sign it, they're more than welcome to do so. But it's not going to make the book any better to me. What's going to make the book better to me is that they've made a good story. And I'm an idealistic fuck. Sorry, I'm cussing a lot. I'm an idealistic jerk. I really am. I'm totally idealistic, and I'm totally I believe in this world that doesn't exist, I suppose. To where, to the point where I don't worship people. I don't worship individuals. I want a well-crafted story, and I want to read a world where I'm so immersed that I don't think about it. I don't think about how I'm not in that world. And I also want, I want ingenuity. I want new and crafty stories, and that's what I think I make is hopefully new and crafty stories.
Yeah.
That's hard to come by, especially if all you read is DC and Marvel.
Yeah, exactly.
With all the rebooting of the same stories over and over again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know how many times I've read X-Men fighting Avengers, and they're doing it again, and I'm just like, okay, well, that's another 3 or 4 months I don't need to buy comics from Marvel.
Right.
Well, so here's the thing, though, I don't buy any. I can very easily fall into the dogging Marvel or DC, the big two, but here's the thing: people keep buying those stories.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing against Kirby here.
Yeah, whoever that is.
But but he buys his Hulk every month, and I am by no means dogging that. I am by no means against that, but at the same time, though, at what point do you say, okay, it wasn't very well written this month. The art is not really that good. I just think it is, or I'm just told that it is. So I need to step away. So.
Yeah.
And that's something that comes with age. Like, a few years ago, I would have just, bought, whatever, but current Hulk, I actually didn't buy an issue. I was proud of myself. I'm like, you know what? I don't like where he's going. I will protest this. And we'll see how long that lasts for. But, I'm like, not this month, Hulk.
Let's occupy Marvel.
Occupy Hulk?
Occupy Hulk, man. I'm all for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way too. There's some comics that I have to buy every month. Wolverine comes to mind. Some X-Men some of the X titles, as well as a few of the new DC titles. I definitely fall into that atmosphere too. But I've started noticing once I started reading more comics, I'm developing a little bit more of an eye, a little bit more pickier of what I'm going to read, and I will just skip a series till the next story arc or till someone else comes on to write or be an artist on it and things like that. And I've been trying to expose myself to more independent comics, such as your DWAP Productions.
So here's my question to you guys. I mean, how much? So it's in my mind, you guys are relative fanboys, and you're reading Marvel and DC primarily. But how much independent comics do you guys really read?
I would say when I first started to get back into it, because I stopped reading comics for years just because I got so burnt out on it, and it was the same story. It wasn't, the art didn't fit the writing, like how we were talking about earlier. So I stopped it. I stopped reading, and then I started getting back into it in August. And I've been picking up. I started with the new Flashpoint, and I was like, okay, well, this seems interesting, a different type of story. And I started reading that, and then I started reading the new 52. And started getting into everything, but then I started drifting away, and I'm starting to read 30 Days of Night, the new 30 Days of Night by Niles. I'm starting to read a whole lot of stuff. Sweet Tooth. Starting to read all kinds of different things. I've been reading. Actually, I kind of lied. I read graphic novels before August. I was reading Why the Last Man. I was reading Fables.
Mm-hmm.
And things like that. So more offbeat, non-superhero type of comics.
Right.
Yeah, and for me, I actually didn't start buying comic books other than the occasional Hulk trade back until June when we formed Codenamed Epic. When we started getting into comics, I started buying more. I usually most of the time I read manga, like the Japanese and stuff. I was more into that. I recently just got into buying other things, I haven't bought too many independents because, to be honest, I didn't really know how to get them, where to get them until I got more into the world. I'm still kind of like in shock seeing how much there is. Like Long Beach Comic Con was my first comic convention.
Wow!
I walked in there and I was like, oh, so there's more than just the Avengers and the Justice League? Okay. So
you guys are virgins.
I'm still catching up a little bit. I'd always catch up with the general storylines of what was happening.
That's awesome.
But I was like, oh, what is this? So I've been trying to catch up like crazy right now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was the same. That was my first comic convention too. While I knew that there was other stuff done DC and Marvel and Vertigo, it definitely opened my eyes a little bit more, and it was so fun just to go in there and just to meet and talk with everyone, such as you and other people from DWAP Productions. It solidified me into reading comics even more so.
So here's the deal. Here's what I recommend for you guys. So and your listeners too. Go to the smaller conventions. I love the guys, the Comic-Con International, the guys who CCI, they put on San Diego Comic-Con, and they put on an amazing 3-ring circus, and they're incredible at doing it. But they've got CCI has smaller conventions that I think are much more interesting for independent comic creators, specifically WonderCon, which is normally in San Francisco, but it's going to be in Anaheim this year.
We will be there.
Go to WonderCon. Go to that show. It's only going to be in Anaheim for a single year. When it's in San Francisco, it's by leaps and bounds probably my favorite convention of the year because it's still primarily about comic books. It's still very focused on creators and comic books and the gambit there. But the other thing that you should also check out is the Alternative Press Expo in San Francisco, APE. It is an amazing show, and it is literally an alternative press expo. It's not just comic books. It's for small creators even smaller than me. That's and a lot of some of it's zines and stuff like that. But it's all just a lot of fun. So check out all 3 of the CCI shows. San Diego, obviously, but WonderCon and the Alternative Press Expo Ape, they're phenomenal. Go to comic-con.org DWAP.org and check out WonderCon, which is going to be in Anaheim, and the Alternative Press Expo, which will be in October in San Francisco.
Yeah, I know I've been looking at WonderCon and then kind of keeping my eyes somewhat on Ape, since it is going to be probably October, either first weekend of October or last weekend of September next year. And it seems more attractive towards at least us, where you could actually go and you can meet the artists and sit down and talk with them and have conversations and get to really know them rather than just, hi, here, sign this, thank you, bye.
Yep. Definitely.
Cons definitely are interesting me more so. I mean, I would love to go to San Diego Comic-Con, of course. I think everyone would love to just go, but it has its own different type of atmosphere at the smaller ones.
If you can buy a ticket to get in to see the atmosphere.
Right. Yeah. Well, you guys shouldn't have to. You guys should get your press passes.
Yeah, we're waiting to hear back. So if you listen to Comic-Con, get on it.
It sounds like, from what I've been reading and the couple emails I've sent back and forth, you need to be in their system, registered as press to even have a shot to be pressed for any of the cons. Yeah. So it's again, first becoming press at one of their cons is the challenging part. Once we're pressed at one of their cons, then we'll be able to be pressed at the other cons as well.
Yep. No, and you know, just don't be passive about it. Be aggressive about it. Step up, get in there, do it. Make yourself known. Send out emails. If you've sent out one email, and then you haven't sent out enough. So, talk to them a lot, and they're great guys. I love the guys that work and do the shows for CCI. They're super good guys, and they're honestly in it for the right reasons, and they genuinely love comics and the creators. So kudos to those guys. But also, step up and don't be silent about getting your press pass.
Yeah.
Definitely going to be aggressive about it. We may be going as part of another convention, PMX, the Pacific Media Expo.
Okay.
We're part of their, I guess their marketing / exhibition team or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they're going to try and get us in, as under, PMX, because the lady who heads PMX knows the wife of the founder of Comic-Con. Wow. Okay. So hopefully we can get the hookup there. Yeah. But if not, hey, keep trying.
Yeah, keep trying. Don't stop.
Yeah.
Now, have you ever had a bad experience at a con, either with someone that was running it or that was working there or something along those lines?
Yeah, sure. I mean, There's good cons, there's bad cons, there's crazy people who run conventions. I actually tend to just not get myself involved with anybody that even smells of being difficult. So I've avoided a couple conventions because I know that they're run by crazy people. And you go to conventions and you start to get to know the crowd and you start to get to know the people that show up at all the shows, and you just learn the faces and you figure out who's crazy and who's not, and you just keep away from crazy.
Yeah, that sounds like a good word of advice. Just stay away from crazy. Are you coming out with any productions soon? I mean, besides the Caffeine 4 volumes and different things they have on DWAP Productions.com.
Yeah, so right now my big thing is what I'm doing on MagnificentCreatures.com. So we're actually reworking. I've got a guy, LP Ross, working on my DWAP Productions site, and it should be up. I'm crossing my fingers. By February is my plan. I'm hoping to have it done by the beginning of February, have my new website for DWAP Productions done. But I'm also working on a new website with the same guy for MagnificentCreatures.com, where I do online. I do one comic panel every Thursday. And I generally tell 13 panel stories. So within 13 weeks, you usually get one story. And it's just another place for me to tell kind of short, oddball stories. The one that I'm working on right now is with a friend of mine named Alex Lugo. He is this phenomenal artist who he and I are working on something called The Second. which is the first superhero story that I've told ever, in terms of like a comic book. So it's very strange to be working on a superhero book for me. And I'm sure that anybody who knows me probably thinks it's pretty weird that I'm working on a superhero book. But I'm having a lot of fun with it. Alex is a pretty phenomenal superhero artist, so I'm excited to be working on it. So yeah, check out magnificentcreatures.com. In terms of things that I have in print right now, I have the 4 issues of Caffeine Dreams. I have a book called Purple Apples, which is a mini comic, originally done as a webcomic on magnificentcreatures.com. I also have Butterfly Industrial 2.0, which was another comic that I did online. I did that with the artist Mulele Jarvis. Check him out at mulele.com. Phenomenal, amazing artist. And I recently published a coloring book, which every time I say that it sounds weird, but this super awesome friend of mine, Donovan Vimcrony, check him out at vimcrony.com. He pitched me the idea of doing a coloring book for black superheroes about 6 months ago, maybe more than that. And knowing him and knowing what a creative guy he is, I had trouble saying no. And so we published a bunch of those and took it to print, and I'm just silly excited about it. The next book that I will take to print is, I did a mini comic, I should say. I did do a mini teaser printing of a story called Atomic Sky, which I gave away at Long Beach Comic Con and Kamikaze a couple months ago. And that was a lot of fun to do with Nathaniel Osolo, who's another phenomenal artist that I'm working with on projects. But the next thing that I'm taking to print is a book called Elvis. It has another subtitle, and I don't remember what it is right now. It's Elvis and the Daughter of Time, I think is what it's called. It's written and drawn by Mulele Jarvis, who I mentioned before I worked on Butterfly Industrial. He's actually the co-creator of MagnificentCreatures.com as well. But he lives in Japan. He's this amazing artist that I only get to talk to over Skype. But he's an incredible guy and a lot of fun to work with. And I'm excited to print his book Elvis, and it's Elbis, and it's a story about a cat. So yeah. And the funny thing is, he is not really a cat fan, and I am allergic to cats, so can't really spend any time with them.
I hear you on that, man. Allergic to cats myself.
That must be an interesting research method that you guys have.
Yeah, so Mulele has he's kind of a trippy guy, and he's funny stories about why he wanted to tell a story about a cat, but I'll let him tell that story some other time.
Sounds good. We'll have to get him on here.
Yeah, definitely. He actually, you know what? We should do a versus. So we should do your podcast versus the podcast that he normally works on. He does this podcast called Deconstructing Comics with another good friend of ours, Tim Young, who does some really awesome podcasts and has been for quite some time. So we should do like a versus where like you guys get on Skype and kind of talk comics and whatnot.
All right, that sounds cool. As long as the internet connection holds up.
Well, they're both in Japan, so I only talk to them over Skype, so I'm sure it'll work.
I heard they have epic internet over there.
I think he's stuck on our part, as long as our internet holds up.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as our shoddy American internet holds up. But that's a lot of good stuff. Now, one thing that kind of stuck out to me, probably because I'm black, was the black superhero.
Yeah.
Book.
Wait, you're black?
I was told I'm black.
I thought he was just very tanned.
Yeah, very tanned.
That's what I thought. I mean, it's Southern California. He's a beach bum, right?
But I think that's really cool because we don't see that a lot.
Yeah.
Because me and a friend of mine were actually starting to do our own comic books, and our first inclination when making heroes was white people. And I have nothing against white people, but we're like, hey,
I don't like white people.
it's like, we're not white. We can't really write for white people, you know. And we try to, like, you know, I had a friend of mine who asked, you know, think of 10 black superheroes. And I had to go on Wikipedia.
Yeah, that's
you know,
rough.
I'm like, and then he's like, name
That's
10
rough.
regular heroes. And I'm like, oh, okay, we just name them off the bat.
So here's the deal. So this is going to sound really, really funny. I don't know. It sounds funny every time I say it. I know a lot of black creators in the comic book industry, and I'm very proud to say that. You know, they end up being just a bunch of great guys, and I dig hanging out with them, and I dig creating with them. And I would love to have you guys interview as many of them as possible, because they're great guys and they need the love. But so yeah, that's part of why I published that coloring book. Is I just, for whatever reason, have fallen in with a bunch of great guys that just happen to be black and happen to be amazing creators at the same time. And you know, they've become good friends of mine. And so when Donovan pitched me this idea, it kind of hit my heart, and just thought that it would be something cool to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Very cool.
See,
Thanks.
I have. See, while you might have a problem with black, white, whatever type of guys. Oh, thin guys for me. Oh man, those thin guys, especially if they could eat anything and everything.
I hate those jerks.
They'll eat like a whole basket of chili cheese fries and just smile at you and like,
and then go to
do
sleep
you want some?
and then not gain a pound.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's like they're the Flash and running on the Flash treadmill all night, burning off all those calories somehow, some way. So, but yeah, so is your wife coming out with any productions or anything that we should be looking at? And do you ever write for her?
You know, I would love to say that she is. Well, so see here. So she actually just recently was part of. As someone who lives in Southern California, you know, you probably have at least heard of this because the advertising is huge. But the thing called Pacific Standard Time, which is this collection of shows around Southern California, just art shows, art gallery shows, museum shows, things like that. She actually was the kind of main installer at the Long Beach Comic-Con show. I'm sorry, not Long Beach Comic-Con, the Long Beach Museum of Art show. And she was like I said, she was the main installer, so she was a huge part of that. And she also wrote part of the book, and she was very involved with the production of that show, and I'm very happy to say that she was part of it and very proud of her for it. So if you live anywhere near Long Beach, go to the Long Beach Museum of Art and check out Astra Price's work of art, what I would call a work of art. She was phenomenal in that, and I think that we've been to several of the other Pacific Standard Time shows since seeing hers, and I will say, yeah, I'm a little biased, but I think she put on the best show that I've seen so far. So yeah, that's her thing. She also makes, like I said, independent artsy documentaries, and I can't say that there's anything online to check out, but soon at DWAPProductions.com you'll be able to go up and see some of her videos online, and I'm trying to talk her into getting some final mixes done on some stuff as well. So hopefully there'll be more stuff up soon.
Sounds good. We'll make sure you have to keep checking the website to see when they go up on and be able to view them and possibly talk to you about them later on, or her.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So, are you going? It sounds like you're going to be going to WonderCon this year. Is there any other cons that we should be looking for you at?
I'll be at WonderCon. I will be at the Alternative Press Expo. I will be at the Single Day Long Beach Comic Convention coming up soon. And Kamikaze, they had one show last year, and they're going to actually have two shows this year. I'm going to try to do both of those as well. So I will be. Yeah, that's my. Oh, and also check out. This is another show to check out. This is going to sound crazy, the West Hollywood Book Fair.
What?
It's a phenomenal show for comic books. A bunch of creators go there every year, and I've been going for the last 3 or 4 years. My books always sell very well there. It's a very open-minded audience that they're interested in, quirky, cool stuff. And I love that convention. I love that show. And I was actually very let down that I couldn't go to this last year, although my books were there. My good friend Vince Moore took care of manning the booth for me. But I ended up I had to go to the Alternative Press Expo was the same weekend, but in San Francisco. So check out the West Hollywood Book Fair. It's an amazing show for comic books. A lot of great creators go there. I got to see Mike Mignola talk, and yeah. So great show. Check it out. Well worth your time.
We'll have to make sure to do that.
And it's free. It's free too.
Oh,
it's
okay.
free.
See, yeah, that changes everything.
Yeah, it's free. So that's huge, right? So you can just walk up to the convention or to the park, and it's the park where the library is. You just walk up to the park. You walk through, and you just buy books, and you don't have to spend any money on the show itself. So I highly recommend it.
See,
I don't know why more people don't go then.
Yeah, I don't know either. I actually think it's a phenomenal book fair. It's amazing. Lots of great people to talk comics with, and a very open-minded audience. So love those guys.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would recommend us either checking out, keep our eyes out for, or anything along those lines?
I mean, I've got a laundry list of creators and websites that I would tell you to check out, but I just go to DWAP Productions. Just check out DWAPProductions.com and go to our links list on the right-hand rail, and just go check out all of our links for everybody that we highly recommend. Sounds
good. We'll make sure to keep our eyes out for that. And do you have any other questions or comments, David?
No, I'm pretty good. Kind of answered everything I had to ask. So
awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. This is Codenamed Epic, Dismal Elephant, a.k.a. Robert Miguel, here with...
Kirby Kid.
Where that guy is.
So, thanks for listening. Catch you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.